Hi there, and welcome to the Carpe Diem Conversation show, where we have conversations with real people who share their real stories about getting more out of life by integrating work and life as one. My name's Andy Willis. I'm the host of this show. Thank you to everyone that's joining us again and anyone that's new here tonight. Looking forward to tonight's conversation, and just a reminder, it is actually a conversation, so you're invited and encouraged to join the conversation and you can do that by just adding comments. Don't wait till the end, because there is a bit of a lag time with Facebook. So get your comments or your questions or anything else you'd like to share in nice and early, and we'll try and answer those questions. Anyway, tonight's special guest is Meryl Johnston. Meryl Johnston is from the Bean Ninjas. Meryl is a chartered accountant who specialises in cloud accounting software Xero, which I use and absolutely love. Bean Ninjas helps e-commerce agencies, coaches and consultants, bloggers and SaaS businesses, and all businesses with their bookkeeping and financial reporting. The Bean Ninjas business is 4 years old and has a distributed team of 15 based in 6 countries around the world. How awesome is that? Bean Ninjas was recently awarded the prestigious Xero Bookkeeping Partner of the Year for Australia in 2019, which is amazing. What an effort that was. And prior to Bean Ninjas, Meryl worked at international accounting firm BDO, ran a consulting business, and taught accounting at a local university. So without any further ado, let's bring Meryl into the studio. Hey, Meryl, did I get it right?
You did. Nicely, awesome. Nicely said. It's great to be awesome. here. I hope there's not too much background noise. It's just started raining again on the tin roof. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, the rain down this way has been absolutely most welcome, because it's put all our fires out. So anyone that's listening from down this way will not be worried about listening to the rain. Actually, people down this way have actually been dancing in the rain. There's been so many videos and photos on the web. Instead of seeing fires with people, we've seen people dancing in the rain, so which has been fantastic. Okay, let's hear a little bit about Meryl Johnston's story. Before Bean Ninjas, tell us about the story or the journey to Bean Ninjas.
Well, I worked as an accountant for about 10 years before Bean Ninjas, and I was always interested in business. So as a kid, I wanted to run businesses, but I didn't really know what it would be. And it actually took me a while after working as an accountant to actually make that transition into my own business. So before Bean Ninjas, I'll go back a couple of years prior, and I was working in an accounting role at a big corporate and decided that wasn't for me anymore. I wanted to travel and really enjoy life. I felt like I was working long hours. I'd moved to the Gold Coast for lifestyle, and that wasn't really what I was achieving. So I left that role, went traveling overseas, and started a consulting business. And that consulting business was fun. It really gave me some freedom. I was able to travel more and wasn't locked into a fixed schedule, which was something I didn't want. But then I started trying to scale that business and then ran into some difficulties in the nature of that consulting work being project-based, and each project was different, needed different skill sets, so it was hard to build a team around that. So I kind of reset and thought about, well, what would my ideal business look like? And my ideal business would be location independent, whereas my consulting business was based in my local area. I wanted something where it was a bit more systemized or had that potential, and so I could build a team. And I wanted something where I could build a global brand rather than the consulting business was my initials. So I wanted to have something that was outside of my expertise. And that's really the genesis story of Bean Ninjas. That's why it started. And I actually met another accountant called Ben who had a similar vision of getting out of the consulting type accounting business and building something that was more scalable. And Bean Ninjas was born. We met together on the Gold Coast for 7 days back in 2015. And in those 7 days, we launched Bean Ninjas.
Wow. That's not that long ago, really. Seeing where you're up to now in what did I say? 6 countries, 7 countries?
6 countries. We have team members spread out around in 6 countries. And
you've done all that in under 5 years. That's an amazing effort. So you mentioned, so you went from a job to you dabbled in another consulting business that wasn't scalable, and you said that was outside of your expertise.
Also, the consulting business was with my expertise in that I was an accountant and I was mainly doing accounting systems consulting, but all other kind of odd jobs as well, helping businesses to prepare for audits, quite a variety of different projects. So it was in my area of accounting expertise. Yeah.
But it was every job was different, so it was really difficult.
Oh, it was hard for me to build a team because so the projects needed my skills, but sometimes they needed different skills as well. And so I was trying to bring on contractors, but then they'd have the skills for one project, but then they didn't have the right skills for the next project. That was where it was difficult to build the team, because each project had different requirements that needed slightly different skills, and I found that difficult to build a team around, whereas bookkeeping is very routine. It's something that happens on a repeatable basis, and it's quite similar. If you're working for e-commerce businesses and say we've got 30 of those kind of clients, then it's a lot easier to train a couple of bookkeepers on how to do that in a standardized way and a repeatable way.
Right. Okay. So you've sort of you've touched on, that you did want to create a location independent business from day one. What's the main motivation for that decision? Was it just yourself with the business partner, or that was something you always wanted to do? And what were the reasons for that?
It was forced on us because we lived in different cities. I was on the Gold Coast, Ben lived in Sydney. And so we were forced to set up systems where we could communicate and collaborate from the beginning, because I couldn't save something on my desktop. There's no way he could access that. But that doesn't really address the why. And it was something we both really wanted. We wanted to be able to travel. We wanted not only to be able to travel, but we wanted to be based in other locations, to go and live in France for a couple of months and work from that location, or take our families there. And that was something independently that we had both wanted. But I suppose we actually met in an online community for location independent entrepreneurs. That was the purpose of the community where we met. So I guess we kind of knew that about each other before we dived into having conversations about a business partnership.
Well, it's a lot better. It's a great mindset to have going into a business, rather than trying to change, because that's the challenge that a lot of business owners have, is they're so conditioned, not just in their systems, but they're conditioned in their mindset of what work looks like. So starting with more or less a clean slate in the right direction is so much better. And you mentioned you'd like to, or maybe you already have spent time in France working from there. I know someone that does that regularly.
I said France because I was thinking of you. We haven't actually done that yet. I've worked from other places. I've spent a bit of time in Bali surfing and working. And I've got a young daughter now, so we're not doing any travel right at the moment. But when she gets a little bit older, then the intention is to take her and be based in other cities.
Yeah, and you've got to visit me in the French Alps, because I'll be there every year, and I can show you around the French Alps. You can come and work from anywhere with me in the beautiful French Alps for sure.
Absolutely, I'll take you up on that.
Yeah. All right, so I'll be there every year. So challenges. What challenges did you have in your journey to, you started independent, you say your business partner, and you were in different cities anyway, but what other challenges have you had along the way? Probably as much building that team and that different culture where you're not in the one place, you're in 6 different countries.
Well, there's always challenges growing a business. And I think the faster you grow, the more quickly challenges arise. I might speak to the challenges specifically related to trying to build a team that's location independent. And one of the challenges we've had is actually the fact we're spread out in different countries with different time zones. So I think you could have a remote team that's, say it was based in Australia, it's still not too difficult to have meetings with team members because you're still in the same time zone. But when we're trying to have a management meeting with people in Australia, Europe, and the US, it's just nasty with the time zone. Someone's got to stay up late, someone's got to get up early. And to do that on a consistent basis means that you need team members that are committed to making that work and okay with, or they can either make it work in their schedule or they're okay with doing an early or a late call on a regular basis if they need to interact with team members. So that's definitely been a challenge. I also found it challenging to build culture remotely, and we've put a lot of thought and energy into that. But in the early days of Bean Ninjas, I didn't think about it so much and expected that it would just happen the way that you can build culture in a physical location more organically, where people just notice or through interactions with each other, they kind of pick up the culture, but you don't have those random interactions in the kitchen or walking in and out of the office when it's a location independent business. And that's something we really had to be a lot more intentional about. I can go, there's plenty of challenges. So let me know if those topics or I can keep on going.
Yeah, I'm interested in your solutions now, the challenges in particular, and it's out there about the distributed or the remote teams. Building that culture is a key challenge for a lot of people, and I know there's some people that address that. But what have you done? What have you found that's worked for that particular challenge?
With building culture?
Yeah, culture.
Yeah. Something we when I realized it was important, and we actually it was important to have values and a why or a vision, and not just something. When I'd been in my corporate world, it was just something that was up on the wall somewhere. No one even knew what it was for their business, for the business they were working for. It wasn't talked about, and it was just kind of a tick box. But then talking to other business owners, I realized actually for a small business like ours, it is important for everyone to have an understanding of why we're doing what we're doing and really get on board and engage with that. And so the first thing we did about 18 months into the business was get everyone together in a workshop. So it was remote. It was a Zoom call with people dialing in from everywhere to have a conversation about what our values were, what everyone thought our values were, what everyone thought our mission was. We broke into little groups as well because some people are louder, some people are quieter, and we wanted everyone to have the opportunity to share that. So getting really clear about what our values and vision was, and then documenting that and then living that and talking about that every day and sharing stories was really important in the beginning. Then just investing time into people. So we had and we still do have one-on-one calls between a team member and their manager, and that's weekly or fortnightly depending on roles and relationships. And that's an important forum to address any issues, see what workload is like. And I think it's important to have that one-on-one time because someone might not feel comfortable raising issues in a group forum.
No. Yeah.
So I think that's really been helpful too, because our managers are usually people that have been with the company longer who really understand our culture. And in those one-on-one calls, they're able to impart some of that culture too. Thirdly, I'd say face-to-face time. And in the early days, we were a bootstrap business. We weren't making a lot of money, especially in those first few years, but we still tried to prioritize getting team members together. We couldn't afford to do a team retreat with every single person, but we might fly one person into a location where 2 or 3 other people were, and we'd try and spend some time together there. And we did that over a period of a couple of years. And gradually all of the team started to meet and spend time socializing, building relationships and getting to know each other. And just recently, a couple of months ago, we had our first team retreat where we flew people in from multiple cities. And I think there was 8 of us in a house for a bit less than a week. And that was incredible. Again, building relationships. So I'd say there's been other things that we've done too, but setting vision and values, being really intentional about talking about that regularly and involving the team in that, and then trying to get the team together when we can, as well as the regular one-on-ones. They're probably the key points.
Yeah, there's a couple of really good points there, and they are involving the team is important. But the other point you brought up about having the one-on-ones as opposed to just the group meetings, because we're all tempted to just have the group meeting, but yeah, we don't think that some people might not want to speak up in a group situation. So that's a really good tip for any organisation, whether it's remote, distributed, or an organisation that is day to day, is having one-on-one sessions with people, and so they're not having to get outside their comfort zone. Really, really good. Great tip.
It's funny. So I think we almost went too far on. So I think the one-on-ones are super important to build those relationships. But then I realized, hang on, we're having conversations, too many one-on-ones. Sometimes we need departmental meetings, and we only realized that just recently, where information was not flowing across departments or even across multiple team members, because we had a whole lot of one-on-one meetings. But we realized, okay, well, we need to bring in some departmental meetings where we're bringing multiple people together, so it's not being repeated or people are getting secondhand information. So it's funny. The one-on-ones were great for those relationships, but then we realized we needed team meetings, and I didn't even like meetings. So we're trying to figure out, how do we have great communication, build relationships, but not waste time in unnecessary meetings. So that's an ongoing thing that we actually are thinking about.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Everything's a challenge, but yeah, it gets to that balancing. You think you're doing the right thing here, and then suddenly, before you know it, you're doing the same thing over and over again. You think, oh, hang on a minute, let's stop and ask ourselves why, and balancing that with something else. But yeah, it's the ongoing, not challenges, joys of building a business.
Yeah,
and I do resonate with your time zone difference, but I actually use it to that time zone difference actually was one of the key things that helped me to actually start changing the way I worked. Because when I first went to France back in 2013, I was in a completely different time zone to my one staff member and my clients. So over in Europe, there's only about a 2-hour window that you can actually talk to this side of the world in a reasonable hour. So I only had that 2-hour window with my staff member or clients or whoever I had to contact, communicate with, and then they were in bed or finished work or whatever. So what happened then, I found, was, okay, well, that 2 hours is over and it looks really nice outside and my bike's over there. So I'm just going to go for a bike ride and come back and work later. So that was, it was funny you mentioned that, because it was actually a key change in my life, that actually having those different time zones actually was a really good opportunity. But for you, it can be a challenge as well.
It can. I think it depends on the nature of the work too, because I think we have some team members that do that. If they're quite experienced and they're doing bookkeeping, they can go off and do that and schedule it into their day when it suits them. But we've found challenges when we're training staff, when you need to be a lot more in sync in terms of instant feedback. Yeah, so pros and cons. But I do like that's a great example. The cycle.
So how much flexibility do you give your team? You've just mentioned it there, that they can, it's all outcome based, or they set certain hours. How does it work? How do you manage that?
So again, from the beginning, we wanted it to be outcome based, but it can be difficult to structure contracts like that. So we still do agree on a certain number of hours per week if we're employing someone, but then we try and give them flexibility over the hours that they work, so that they can still meet the requirements of the job. So if they have certain meetings they need to attend, then they need to be available during those times. But then some of their work, if it doesn't matter what time it gets done, then they can go off and do that when it's needed. So we've never really, especially in the early days, we never really had set office hours. It was just anyone could work at whatever time suited them. And that really worked well in the beginning, and especially for the type of people we were attracting. We were getting really experienced accountants from great, top tier, Big Four, big mid-tier firms, really good talent because they wanted that freedom. It is a little bit more challenging now. So we've grown again from I had said we're a team of 15, we're actually now getting closer to 20. So we're regularly hiring. And when you've got almost 20 people trying to sync up, working the hours that they want, that's starting to get challenging. So where we're trying to juggle that, where we want to give people freedom, absolutely, and control over their schedules, but how do we also make that work in a work environment where we need people online at the same time, especially with things like training. So we're probably tightening how much freedom or how much flexibility we have over those hours, but it's definitely a question we ask. What suits you? What hours would you like to work? But we're asking for a little bit more consistency with that to help with things like planning. So we know who's going to be working roughly when.
Yeah, but in saying that, you're still giving your team so much more flexibility than many other organisations out there. I'm absolutely sure of that. It's very refreshing to hear you describe, how that works for you. But and also, I shouldn't really generalise here, but accountants of all people are very traditional businesses that have an office that they sit in and they have client meetings. So, yeah. I don't know. Are there many other organisations like yourselves? Are accounting firms going that way?
I think it's newer accounting firms. So they're more similar to Bean Ninjas in that they may have started in the last 5 or 10 years. And so they would be more similar to us. But I think accounting firms generally are run by tax accountants, and taxes are usually that business model is to have an office in a local area and then have clients that live in or near that area come to you for suburban practices. So I think it is, I still do get comments from accountants fairly regularly around, well, how do you know that your team are doing the work when they're not in the office and you don't know exactly what time they're working because they've got flexibility over that. And to me, that all comes back to good management around, well, what are the deliverables for that role? What does success look like? How are you measuring that? And how often are you assessing against whether those targets are being met? So I do get that question from accountants on a semi-regular basis, but I do think the industry is moving more towards this flexible model and having work from home. But I wouldn't say that the industry trend is for accounting firms to have a flexible workforce of everyone working the hours that they want. I'd say it's still a lot of the 9 to 5.
Yeah. Well, the accounting as a world is changing too.
Moving rapidly.
Yeah, very rapidly. You can see it in because a lot of it's going to be, of course, automated. So accountants, can be doing what they're good at, which is actually giving advice instead of doing bookkeeping as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so interested. What benefits have yourself, the organisation, your Bean Ninjas, and your team? You've described some of them. What do you think are the key benefits of being location independent?
I know that from a personal basis, I really like it, that I have that choice of where I'm going to be based from, and I love living on the Gold Coast, and I chose to live here. But if for some reason we needed to move somewhere else, I could do exactly the same role wherever I need to be. And we've actually had team members move cities and move countries, and no problem. They moved, they caught the plane, and then they continued working at Bean Ninjas. Whereas in another company, that might mean that position is no longer available. So I think that's one. I love the flexibility. Before my daughter was born, I would go and work from different locations. I'd go and work in Byron Bay for the day, or go and surf somewhere and then do a little bit of work in the afternoon. So I enjoyed that from a lifestyle perspective. And then I think there's business advantages too, because you have so much more opportunity with hiring. We're trying to hire the best in the world. We're not trying to hire the best in the particular city that I live in. So it really opens up the opportunities in terms of who you can hire. And then if I look at our team, I think we're a really close-knit team, especially considering some people have only met in person a couple of times, but it's created opportunities for our team members to spend time with their families and to be there for important events like school assemblies or concerts. all of our team, and regardless of if they're in America or the Philippines or Europe, everyone in our team is getting to those important events or taking the day off on their birthday or whatever's important to them. So they're achieving success at work, but they're also achieving success, whatever that looks like to them, in their life outside of work. And that's really important to me, from achieving it for myself, but to see that for my team as well.
Yeah, and that's right. You're giving them the opportunity to do the things that are important to them, because especially with kids and going to school events and sport and things like that, we only have kids for a very short while. So once you miss out on those opportunities, you never ever get a chance. So fantastic that you are. It is one of the great benefits I see, and one of the things I talk about is you can actually go to those things and have that flexibility. Yeah. So for all the other business owners out there, or maybe some accountants out there that aren't working location independent, what advice would you have for them?
I think there's a couple of things that you need in place to effectively have a location independent business. And the first is the technology that you're using. And so you need to be using cloud tools, and that would be from things like G Suite, which I know that you have a lot of expertise in, Andy, but a whole range of things. So all of the tools that you're using, that they need to be in the cloud to make this work effectively. But it also is a cultural and mindset shift too. So you can have everything in the cloud, but you still might feel like you have to be available for your clients in an office. Well, that's a mindset shift around how are you going to re-educate your clients to have Zoom calls or online meetings, whether you're at home or whether you're in France. And I think there's a lot of those little decisions and little changes that need to be made around processes and mindset. Client meetings is just one example of that. So you can have the tech stack, but that doesn't mean you're location independent yet, because you might have a lot of expectations from other people that need to be adjusted.
Yeah, and what you bring up there, which gets continually brought up on this show and continually brought up in the Work From Anywhere program and at Carpe Diem retreats last year, is the mindset. The mindset is by far the biggest challenge. The tech's out there, it's reasonably easy to use, but it's this conditioning that we used to, we have to be there. So the mindset by far is the biggest challenge, and how we've addressed that is as part of our, in our program, we have regular masterminds and get together and we talk about that stuff, and everyone works out that everyone's got the same problem, the same challenges, and it takes many months to actually get through that sort of stuff. So I think definitely a challenge. Now, before I ask you one last question, I can't believe it, we've got no comments, no questions out there, people. If you have questions for Meryl, now's the time, because we're not here for much longer. So if you do have questions, please post a comment and ask away. And while we're waiting for those, Meryl, please share with me. I know you have some programs that you run for people out there that need a little bit more help with financial literacy and how to use Xero. Please share what you have available.
Yeah, this is actually a passion area of mine. I love teaching. And as you mentioned at the beginning, I actually used to teach accounting at university. And something I realized when we were doing or providing bookkeeping services to clients was we were providing a set of reports, financial reports, profit and loss, balance sheet. And then often the reports weren't being looked at. And if you're not looking at the numbers in your business, then it's difficult to make informed decisions. And so on the one hand, I was disappointed that we were putting all this effort into beautiful reports and then they weren't being looked at. But also, I didn't think that business owners were really taking advantage of using the numbers, the data in their business. So I created a Know Your Numbers financial reporting course. And that's really teaching small business owners how to actually look at your financial report. So what are you looking for? What does a profit and loss mean? How do you lay it out for your business? What's a balance sheet? What are some simple ratios that would apply to your industry? And how do you start to use these numbers to make decisions, such as how much should you pay yourself, or can you bring on a new employee, or should you spend X on marketing? And how does that stack up compared to what else is happening in your industry? So that's one of the courses which educates around understanding financial reports and knowing your numbers. And then the other course is how to do bookkeeping in Xero. And this came about because we would have conversations around outsourcing bookkeeping, but early stage businesses need to do bookkeeping, but they might not yet be able to afford our services. And so that was the reason we created the How to Do Bookkeeping in Xero course, to teach business owners or how do you actually go about it and do bookkeeping in Xero. And we've got a whole lot of standard operating procedures that help with that.
That's fantastic. And Jennifer says, you've covered all my questions. That's good. Such a great business model and philosophy. Your employees must love flexibility. Jennifer's actually in our current Work From Anywhere program. And you met her the other day because you're on our mastermind. And yeah, Jen does actually use Xero. Oh, no, she doesn't. She uses MYOB, but she does do the account. So it's good that you've covered all her questions.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah, the Xero thing is we or any accounting package, we all use them, but like any software we use, if we just ask someone else to give us a few little tips, which would save us so much time. It's a matter of, what you don't know, you don't know. So there are a couple of great courses, and I'll add a link to those in the show notes for this. But we can find you at beanninjas.com.
That's right. So it's beanninjas.com, BEANNINJAS. And then if you go to /course, then that will take you to the courses page. And I'll quickly mention there's a online DIY version, self-paced, but we also have a mentorship program, a little bit like your model, I think, Andy, but this one only goes for 5 weeks. So it has weekly calls with an accountant to answer any specific questions.
And I would absolutely recommend the mentoring part, because those group sessions are so valuable. And the other thing it does, of course, it keeps everyone accountable. So it's only over 5 weeks too. So it's a really good course to get on board with, guys. Anyone out there, even if you are quite good at your bookkeeping, guaranteed you'll learn something. So thank you, Meryl. It's been awesome. We've had the shoe on the other foot because you interviewed me. I think I was in France at the time on your podcast, and now I've found out a bit more about you. So thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you to everyone that's out there and not asking any questions, but that's okay. The next Carpe Diem Conversation show will actually be in 2 weeks, and we've got a bit of a reunion of our last Work From Anywhere program, our last Carpe Diem retreat. So all the people that come to the French Alps last year, we're all meeting down in Gippsland at one of the guys' places, and we're having a bit of a reunion. So I decided we'd share the love and have a Carpe Diem conversation and find out where those guys are all up to in their Working From Anywhere journey. So thank you, everyone, for coming along. Thank you, Meryl. Say goodbye to everyone. And we'll see everyone next week. Thanks for joining us.